Hi there. I've got Kathy Colby here again. We talked about the Colby wisdom the last time, and Kathy Colby is the person who came up with the concept of conation and three parts of the mind. And she's the only person who identified what makes us all equal in all human beings. Thanks again, Kathy, for coming back.
I'm glad to be with you. We had so much fun last time.
It's always fun. Something we want to talk about today is what I've been calling playing a character, and the listeners have heard me refer to this many, many times, that for my first 40 years of my life, I was playing a character, and that was a character that could be better accepted, better fit into the norms, or just be someone that I'm not. But before we get too far into this, I just want to make a point here to everyone that we are not therapists.
No,
We're not therapists. We're not providing therapeutic advice or anything along that line. It's two people that have extraordinary skills in identifying and working with people's strengths. I just want to make that clear to everyone that we're not the therapists, but we both have a deep interest on how people tick uniquely and how they work best.
fair enough.
Many years ago, Kathy, like in 2011, I got my Colby A index, and that validated me. Then I got involved with my companies a few years later. Then I decided to get certified and work with Colby and learn more and more about it, because it's a very powerful validating tool and how to make teams work effectively and understand each other. So based on that, we talked a while ago about how for a while I played the character of an engineer. So I kind of trained myself that I should be thinking that way, the way it was trained. And then with my ADHD diagnosis and with a conversation with a lot of people, is to fit in or to hide or mask my uniqueness that was not well accepted. I kind of started playing a different character. And then for me, after a while, that became so ingrained, I couldn't separate my true self from the character self. So after the diagnosis and therapies, I'm still struggling right now. I say, is that the old Andre, or is this the true Andre's values or goals? I don't know if you had any insights or thoughts about that, because there's a lot of people out there that has this feeling that they're just being a character, not their true selves.
Well, unfortunately, the whole school system is designed right now, the United States public school system and a lot of private schools, that for a kid to succeed and do well, you have to be this person who is a fact finder, reads all the things they're supposed to read, can answer the questions about what they read, knows the specifics. Most of our standardized testing involves recalling details of information. So you get a lot of points in our school system for being a fact finder. And then on top of that, you get points for being tidy and neat and organized and doing things in an order. And I found well over 70%, close to 80% of primary school teachers lead with follow through. Mm-hmm. So from first grade through the primary grades, we get rewards for writing our name neatly in the upper right-hand corner, as if that's a real successful thing to do. And we get points for having the margins correctly placed, and we don't go past the margins, and neat handwriting, and following the procedures, and ending on time, and not going over this line. Well, if that's how you're rewarded, then kids begin to feel, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's, and if I don't naturally do that, there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I'm not right. So if you have the combination of not being either a fact finder or follow through, which naturally means you're a quick start, you are outspoken, you're an implementer, you need to touch and feel, then if you speak out when it's not your turn and you touch things when you weren't supposed to touch, now you're not only not good at what you're supposed to be, you're bad because you're being who you are.
Right. And that's so true.
So yeah, we pathologize a very normal set of behaviors, saying it's bad, it's wrong, this because it's troubled, this kid has problems, because they speak up and touch things, and because they don't remember details and aren't tidy. Well, in the adult world, that's not true. In the adult world, a person like that happens to be an entrepreneur in many cases, and an inventor. And yet we're penalizing these kids and making them feel abnormal and like their bad behavior. Why did you do that? I hate it when a parent or teacher asks a kid, why did you do that? Well, how about because it's me and I did what was normal for me to do, and what was wrong with it? The very way they ask the question asserts that you're not cooperating, there's something wrong with you. A whole lot of kids have really negative self-images because they don't fit the cookie cutter mold of what an American student should look like in the primary elementary grades, really
Well,
through.
even high school.
Well, even high school, although there's a little more leeway in high school.
Yeah.
You have some teachers, the drama teacher, the sports coach,
Mhm.
if your kid specializes in some activities that are after school, that's where they find they're accepted. Unfortunately, sometimes that activity is smoking drugs and being out with a gang because they're looking for someplace they're accepted.
Well, that too, but at the same time is every time you get ridiculed or criticized for doing something that you know that's how you do best, you know that's the right way, but then you're told it's not the right way, you get confused at a young age, and after a while you just say, well, what's the point of trying?
I can't tell you how many adults I've given Colby results, including CEOs of businesses. They get their result, they find out, oh, I'm a quick start implementer, and they break into tears.
Mhm.
If only I'd known that when I was a kid, I wouldn't have felt so terrible about myself.
Yeah.
And all my life, I've tried to cover it. As you've said, play a role. I've tried to play the role of being the fact finder follow through. So I would get good grades and I would get attention and I would get the honors, when all the while I knew I wasn't free to be me. I just didn't know what being me would even feel like.
And
A
that's
lot of
damaging to the
Oh,
self-image.
it's totally destructive when a kid gets false praise, and false praise is good job when all they did was mimic what you did. They didn't create anything new. They didn't really do anything they're proud of. If you give kids reward for mimicking what you think they should do, not their form of creativity, that's false praise. And it
Right.
means nothing to them except it confuses their minds. And I can remember when people used to praise me for being quiet. Oh, that's good. You sat through the whole thing and didn't say anything. Now, to me, that means I was being ornery. If I don't say anything, I'm mad or I'm disagreeing.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
me. I'm gonna
Yeah.
speak.
And me too. If I'm
They
quiet,
would,
it's like, watch out.
they would give me praise. You went through the whole thing and never said anything. Good job. And I think, oh my goodness, it's good job not to be me, not to say what I really think. But I was very, very shy. And in part because of that, I got the mixed message that I got praised for not being me. And by sitting there and not speaking up and not touching anything, and I'm definitely a person who needs to feel, touch, and ask and give opinions. And the quieter I was, the more praise I got. And I got praise for not being me. And of course, that reinforced my fear of speaking out. And I was then listed by my teacher as having this disability of being too shy. And now they even have a pill they give shy kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that's outrageous.
Yeah. So restricting your ability to be
It's
yourself.
usually a kid is shy.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, one of the reasons a lot of kids is shy is because they don't believe who they are is what people want to hear or see.
But,
So they
well,
withdraw.
exactly. Because if you're going to be yourself, you're going to be ridiculed or criticized. What's the point? You're going to turn inside and be quiet, and that's misinterpreted as being shy.
Yep.
So it's actually more you're internalizing, you're just withdrawing in yourself than being shy.
Yeah, I can't tell you how often in my early life I just shut down in order not to be criticized. Do nothing when nothing works.
Like, Kathy, I did that
learned
for the
early
last,
on.
yeah, I did that for the last 5 years in high school. Well, yeah, 5 years. I got an extra year. 5 years in high school. I just shut down at home and just waited till I moved out. That's a long time.
You had to do an extra year of high
Oh,
school?
in Ontario, we had a grade 13.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we had 5 years of high school. Which was like a pre-university, pre-college year.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like, and that's very, it's isolating if you got to be this. And then if creating this character, after a while, people would just start believing that's who they are.
I had an interesting thing happen to me in high school. A guy who later became a psychologist at Harvard was a very good friend of mine, and I was the co-director of the high school musical, and I was very intense, and he and others who saw me there saw me as a leader and as a doer and very involved. But then he went home and saw me in my home environment because we're good friends and he was around my home a lot. And he actually did a paper at Harvard talking about me as having two, he said Kay and Kathy, they called me Kathy at home and Kay at school. And he said, you were two totally different people. At home, you were so quiet, you didn't speak up, you didn't say anything, you were just a good doobie. And at school, you were a leader and a contributor, and I would ask questions. And he said, I couldn't believe how different you were at home. Well, what I learned as the youngest, just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
And if they would all keep their mouth shut, they wouldn't get in so much trouble. But I learned, don't speak up, don't say anything, just be quiet. And it wasn't because my parents didn't want me to be me. They didn't have a clue who I was until I was an adult.
Mhm.
And then it was kind of like, what? Who is this shy little girl who's out there giving speeches? Well, I was quiet more than shy. I just didn't feel that they were interested in what I had to say.
Right. Well, that's a great big distinction there. But when you became an adult, you were more self-aware than the majority of people would be. Would that be a fair statement?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think
My
that's
dad-
a big key
My
for,
dad was a test developer and an assessment person and was an industrial psychologist. And I dearly adored my dad. I disagreed with him on a ton of things, but I learned through our discussions, and he was very comfortable talking about my disagreements. And what I disagreed with was the equality issue. And with my dad's test, the Wonderlic personnel test, the NFL uses it to this day. It doesn't really tell you what a person will do or do well. It tells you how smart they are about what kinds of things you learn in high school. And so if you've been out of high school for a while, you wouldn't remember it. And if you weren't a good student to start with, you wouldn't do well on it. But I kept saying, Dad, everybody's equally good. We're just good at different things. And he'd call me his little Pollyanna, because he said, you want to believe that. And that's just Pollyanna. And I said, Dad, no, it's true. I don't score as well on standardized tests, and it's because I'm supposed to remember stuff I don't remember. But I do really, really well on leadership stuff in activities. I don't need to do well on that stuff. I'll be fine. And he said, yeah, you'll always be fine because you talk your way out of stuff.
Mhm.
And we go round in circles on these kinds of things. And I'd always come back to the same conclusion. It isn't just that I'm always going to be fine. I don't know anybody who couldn't always be fine if they just understood their strengths, which they're not told about in school. School only tells you how good you are at fact finding and being neat and tidy up until middle school. The grade schools care about that. It doesn't tell you how innovative you are. There's no praise in biology class for being innovative. There's no praise in geometry for being innovative. I would find tricks that would help me.
So that's very interesting, that point. Like you're saying is that you were actually trained as kids in school to be fact finder follow-throughs in the system and the knowledge that they deemed important.
Well, that's how we got good grades. If grades mattered to you, it's because you adapted the behaviors.
Correct.
And you postured in and learned and studied to be good as a fact finder follow through. But as soon as you get into a major in college, you start to realize nobody really cares whether you have the right answer. Well, in some cases they do. I was in journalism and nobody cared whether I had the right answer. They cared whether I wrote well. Well, I didn't learn how to write until I got into college. And even then, it was sort of a summary of it. But what does it matter if you're a good fact finder follow through? To me, it doesn't. Are you a good creative problem solver in the areas in which you need to solve problems, which is called life?
Mhm.
So I'd rather have a life partner, I'd rather have employees, I'd rather have friends who are good creative problem solvers than really good at remembering what they read.
And you're saying creative problem solvers without having to know a bunch of stuff or being systematic, just the fact that they can solve problems creatively the way they work.
This is where equality comes in. Every human being, with the data that I've kept over now 40 years of data, every human being is equally creative and capable of solving problems. We create differently. So whether we succeed in using our creative problem solving depends upon our freedom to be ourselves. I went down a path where I could be my quick start self because I became entrepreneurial, created my own businesses, created my own programs, give my own, I do everything my own way. So yeah, I could be on the cover of Time magazine. It should have been for being free to be me. They said it was for overcoming obstacles, like that I'm ADD, ADHD, dyslexic. Yeah, I have all these disses. Well, they make me unique and different. And I've always had fun with being ADD. I've had fun being autistic. I'm not really autistic. I'm a lot of things. My brain is quirky. I thought that was just great. I could read backwards and write backwards faster than I could forwards. How many of my friends could do that?
Right.
So I won every contest I set up for writing backwards. My point being, if you know who you are and what your strengths and foibles are, you can create your own success. Everybody, every one of us can.
Exactly.
The problem is that people haven't been taught that. They don't know that. Do your listeners all know that they have equal creative ability to every other? They're as creative as Jefferson was, as any artist or anybody. They're, whatever they choose to do, they have the creativity to do it their way. It's only when they don't know what their way is that they're limited.
Right. And this is where we fall in the character playing. Now, at the same time, my listeners, if they've been listening for a while, yes, I'm all about understanding you, your strengths, your abilities, and even your what you call the foibles, even understanding your weaknesses to avoid working there is very key. So, like, how can we measure these natural abilities? How can we identify these natural abilities so that we can start separating ourselves from the character with our true selves? I hear you've got something that will work very well.
Yeah. Well, I think what's important is, first of all, believe in yourself. And secondly, use the tools available to help you understand what you do well. And that includes the Kolbe A index for adults and the youth index for kids. I now even have a program that works with little guys. So we can get a video of a year-old kid playing with stuff and I can tell you their strengths, how they normally do things. I don't have a magic wand. I've been saying that for years. I don't have a magic wand. I'm not a therapist. I have a process that has proven with hundreds of thousands of people now to be accurate and predictive. And what it predicts is equality. And that's why some organizations and individuals don't want it used. They don't want equality. They're not interested in that truth. The truth is, if I walk into a law office, no one in that room is any better than anybody in the front room that's doing their secretarial work.
Correct.
They're all equal. Some professionals don't want to think of others as equal. In part, they paid a whole lot of money to get a whole lot of training to be an expert. Well, they're an expert, and so intellectually they have more knowledge. They're not more creative. And there's so many things that we can turn to where there have been natural disasters where maybe the least educated, the least informed saved lives more than others because there was creative problem solving. You can make your life better. You can contribute more to the world by being you than any other way you could do it.
Yes. And that's one of the best quotes I've ever heard from you, is that everyone's equal, but different. And I really like that. And you've proven that. Excuse me. And like, I really enjoy this conversation, Kathy, because I think there's three good points here. Like, I really like the false praise is actually being praised for not being you. I think is a very good way of looking at it, in the sense mixed messages to kids, even adults. And everyone's equally creative and solving problems differently. Sorry, equally creative at solving problems differently.
Yeah.
And to having everyone to accept that and understand that is tough, but I think, like you said, I think everyone's got to take this away. This is the key one. You have to believe in yourself and understand yourself before you can understand and get a better understanding and advocate and not be obstinate about your strengths and abilities.
That's why I think be obstinate is such an important phrase for me. We have to be obstinate being ourselves. Our first duty to ourselves is to be defiant when people try to make us change or do it differently. I'll show you how I think you could do it your way if that'll help you, but I'm always going to do it my way when I have to get it done for my purposes. Every single human being was created with an equal amount of ability to be creative and solve problems. That means we all have purpose, and we need each and every one of us contributing. It can't be just certain kinds of people contribute, but our schools have rewarded and actually taught us in a very terrible way that some methods of solving problems are better than others because they've rewarded them with better grades. And that's made some kids feel dumb and less important. Well, it's the dumb system that's done that to you. And don't be dumb and buy it. Ignore that system, ignore those grades. Those grades given by standardized tests are appallingly wrong, inappropriate, and negative for our world. What you need to know is when you take a test of your abilities and it shows you, you get to do it your way and you can show what you can do, it will prove your equality and your value and your worth. And the fact we need you. The people who get the less praise are the people we need the most right now because they give us common sense.
Yeah. And like you said, we all have a purpose. We're open-minded and truly look inside of ourselves, and to better help us separate ourselves from the character we played for a long time and bring out our true self. And like you said, we all have purpose. Believe in yourself, understand yourself. We're all equally creative at solving problems, but differently. I love it.
And I think it's so important that every one of you reach out to people you know, and I'm sure you know them, who don't feel they have value, who don't see their purpose. These people suffer greatly. These people are in danger of doing self-harm or harm to others in their anger. Reach out to them. Thank them for the ability they give, the creativity they share. Praise them for it. Make them aware it's appreciated. Make them aware they have it. You could save a life.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about the Kolbe Wisdom, you can go to kolbe.com, or you can reach out to me and we can talk about it. And if you want to have to understand your uniqueness, there's lots of resources I can help you, but it's something I really like to help you with. Thanks again, Kathy, for another insightful, intellectual, thoughtful conversation. And I can't wait to do this again.
Thanks, Andre. You're one of my heroes.
Oh, thank you. Take care, everyone.